Hello and welcome once again to Rogues Gallery Incorporated's Best of the Worst. If it's the 20th, I must be Ugo Strange. So last time we explored the utter depths of suckitude that was Mortal Kombat Annihilation. This week, we're going to plunge into the utter depths of hell that is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So, how does this stack up against this? Find out after the credits. You know, many people say that you shouldn't compare remakes to the originals because the remake should be able to stand alone as its own movie. Well, to that I say, bullshit! You see, if a remake was supposed to stand as its own movie, then it wouldn't be a remake. But you see, because it's a remake, it has to stand as either an improvement or an absolute failure compared to its former. Thus far, I have yet to run into a remake that is able to stand against the original. And the case of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is no exception. In fact, comparing this with this is so unevenly matched that it's almost an insult to put these two together. Before I start my review, let me give you some background. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was originally a book written by Roald Dahl. He's also the writer of such notable works as James and the Giant Peach, Matilda, and Mr. Fantastic Fox. Roald Dahl also wrote the screenplay for the original movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory starring Gene Wilder. However, Dahl was unable to meet the deadline to completing the script, and the vast majority of it was rewritten by David Setzler. Despite the roaring success of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Dahl was pissed about the movie adaptation and completely disowned it. Not only that, but refused to allow the sequel novel, Charlie and the Glass Elevator, to be produced into a movie as well. Dahl isn't the first author to be pissed off about their work being turned into a movie. Why, Alan Moore is notoriously famous for disowning the movie adaptations of his work. Furthermore, Stephen King, Arthur C. Clarke, and Anthony Burgess have had their share of book-to-movie frustrations at the hands of Stanley Kubrick, directing The Shining, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and A Clockwork Orange. All classic movies hated by their authors. But we're not here to talk about book-to-movie adaptations, although that would make a great topic to cover in a future episode. We're here to talk about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, Dahl's anger with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was with the various plot changes. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is very faithful to the book, which unfortunately is its major weakness. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory had a sense of whimsy to it, a bit of movie magic that is so rarely captured nowadays. I'm not a guy who likes musicals, but when Willy Wonka starts to sing, you can't help but get caught up in the magic, and no matter how old you are, you feel like a kid again. From singing along with the Oompa Loompas, sympathizing with Charlie, being creeped out by the boat sequence, and being brought to tears when Charlie wins the grand prize. Willy Wonka has heart, soul, and an overall feel-good story that doesn't come off as cheap, cheesy, or forced. It comes off as an honest movie with a good lesson about doing the right thing, and what it means to be a kid, and proving once and for all that you're never too old for a little bit of candy. I mean, hell, I'm willing to forgive Slugworth's ability to bend space-time by showing up at the children's house every time, because the original is so damn good. Before I begin, I have to address the changes between this movie and the original. First of all, Slugworth isn't a major character like he is in the original. For those of you who've seen the original, You should know that Slugworth was the creepy guy who was working to get Willy Wonka's everlasting gobstopper recipe. In actuality, Slugworth was a spy working for Wonka to determine which of the children would be likely candidates to take over Wonka's factory. This is something that does not happen in this movie or in the book. In the book and in this movie, Slugworth is merely a background character and an actual spy. If you haven't seen the original, I suggest you turn this review off right now and go kill yourself for sucking at life. So, join me if you dare to review Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And may God have mercy on our souls.
This is a story of an ordinary little boy named Charlie Bucket.
So the movie just started and already I have a problem with it. A narrator? The original didn't need a fucking narrator. This is just nitpicking, but the charm of the original is that we could clearly see that Charlie was just a boy down on his luck and keeping his head held high. We didn't need a fucking voice from nowhere telling us that. This section of the movie is pretty basic, however, I have to address this. Charlie has built a scale model of the Wonka factory out of warped toothpaste caps. Why am I bringing this up? Because it's entirely fucking pointless to the overall plot of the movie! It adds absolutely nothing to this piece of trash! It could have been used as a nice bit of character growth for Wonka at the end of the movie, but it's never brought up again in this entire movie! Ever! 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 Moving on.
Dad found it. Just the piece I needed.
What piece was it?
A head for Willy Wonka.
How wonderful. It's quite a likeness.
You think so?
Think so? I know so. I saw Willy Wonka with my own 2 eyes. I used to work for him, you know.
This bit of information is also extremely pointless. This is only brought up twice in this entire movie. For someone who worked for one of the greatest candy makers of all time, you'd think that would come up in conversation at least once or twice. Also, this is not a plot point. Why they added this to this movie is completely beyond me. Okay, sure. Grandpa Joe was going to use it to tell a story about Willy Wonka, but we'll see these stories don't exactly paint Mr. Wonka in a positive light. Moving on.
You did.
I did. He did. He did. I love grapes. Of course, I was a much younger man in those days. Willy Wonka began with a single store on Cherry Street, but the whole world wanted his candy.
Mr. Wonka?
Yeah.
We need more Wonka bars, and we're out of chocolate birds.
Birds? Birds. Well then, we'll need to make some more. Here. Now open.
The man was a genius.
So basically, Willy Wonka is this mad candy genius who started out with a single store and then got so much money that he finally built a factory. The largest candy factory in the world.
Tell him about the Indian prince. He'd like to hear about that.
You mean Prince Pondicherry? Well, Prince Pondicherry wrote a letter to Mr. Wonka and asked him to come all the way out to India and build him a colossal palace entirely out of chocolate.
It will have 100 rooms, and everything will be made of either dark or light chocolate.
True to his word, the bricks were chocolate, and the cement holding them together was chocolate. All the walls and ceilings were made of chocolate as well. So were the carpets and the pictures and the furniture.
It is perfect in every way.
Yeah, but it won't last long. You better start eating right now.
Oh, nonsense. I will not eat my palace. I intend...
So Wonka builds a palace out of chocolate for this Indian guy named Prince Pondicherry, and I'm not even gonna make a joke on that name. Because I don't go for the cheap stuff. Like your mother! What? What did I say? What? I'm gonna let this entire story speak for itself because I really want you all to remember what's about to happen.
Wonka was facing problems of his own. All the other chocolate makers, you see, had grown jealous of Mr. Wonka. They began sending in spies to steal his secret recipes. Fickelgruber started making an ice cream that would never melt. Prodnose came out with a chewing gum that never lost its flavor. Then Slugworth began making candy balloons that you could blow up to incredible sizes. The thievery got so bad that one day, without warning, Mr. Wonka told every single one of his workers to go home. He announced that he was closing his chocolate factory forever.
I'm closing my chocolate factory forever. I'm sorry.
But it didn't close forever. It's open right now.
Oh, okay, so wait. Willy Wonka fires everyone, they lose their jobs, and he doesn't reimburse them at all? No pension? No health care? This guy's a fucking dick! You mean to tell me this prick had enough money to build the largest chocolate factory in the world, and the money to go build some dumbass an entire palace made of chocolate, but he couldn't take care of his own fucking employees? But seriously though, he closes the factory, then years later reopens it, and yet none of the former employees got any form of reimbursement? I mean, okay, maybe he wasn't turning a profit back then because of the spies. He's turning a profit now, so why not send your old employees some checks and say, hey guys, my bad. That pasty-faced prick is living in a pimped-out factory while Grandpa Joe is slurping cabbage soup in a crooked house